What happens when a CEO disguises himself as a waiter and finds his staff being forced to lie to customers about health and safety? Stephen Pierce stood in the back of the headquarters conference room, arms crossed, watching the sales reports slide across the screen. They were fine, decent foot traffic, solid profits, but none of that explained why two of his buffet locations had complaints piling up on social media. Not just about food, about the smell, about sticky floors, about staff looking exhausted, the kind of stuff that didn't show up in spreadsheets. He'd inherited the company from his father 3 years ago. 20 Buffett restaurants across the state, corporate structure, district managers, location managers. And somewhere in all that, Stephen realized he hadn't actually stood in one of his dining rooms in over a year. He didn't trust the polished answers anymore. He wanted to see it himself. Stephen picked store 14. The complaints from that one were vague but constant. Unclean, felt rushed, something off. The manager, a man named Rick, always had a reason: staff turnover, a bad shipment. Internet trolls. Stephen had never met Rick in person. Most of the store-level hires hadn't seen his face, either partly because the company had grown so fast under his father and partly because Stephen had intentionally stayed behind the scenes. He got a full haircut, lost the suit, grew out a little stubble, wore black non-slip shoes and a standard uniform polo, a new name tag, Sean. He applied through a temp agency that worked with the company, no red flags. 1 week later, he got his schedule. His first shift started on a Monday at noon. "Hey, new guy," a short woman with a buzz cut called out as he walked in. "You're late." "Sorry, traffic," Stephen said, falling into character. She didn't even glance at him. "I'm Haley. You're with Waitstaff. You bus tables, refill drinks, and do whatever Rick says. Don't fall behind." Rick was already at the front, chatting up a customer in a fake, cheerful tone. He was in his 40s, heavyset, wearing a crisp white shirt that looked too clean for this place. Stephen nodded at him as they passed. Rick barely looked up. "New guy, great. Do not make me look bad. Smile, move fast, and if something looks gross, just wipe it down and keep it moving. We don't need customers getting ideas." Stephen fell into the routine. The buffet was busy. He cleared plates, wiped tables, refilled napkin containers. The air smelled faintly of bleach and old grease. He worked through his nerves, pretending to be just another undertrained hire. By hour 3, Stephen noticed something strange. Every time a customer pointed out something: sticky floor, food spilled by the salad bar, a fly near the drinks, Rick would say, "We're on it." And then lean close to whoever was nearby and say, "Just spray the air freshener and look busy." At first, it seemed like laziness. But then Stephen saw Rick pull Haley aside. "Those health inspectors are back this month. I don't care what the floor looks like. You mop the front only. Grab the lemon scent. They don't check the back unless you let them. Got it?" Haley looked uncomfortable. "Shouldn't we just clean?" Rick cut her off. "Do what I said. None of that hero stuff. You want hours next week?" She didn't answer. She just walked away. Later that evening, Haley and Stephen were folding napkins in the back room. She finally spoke. "You're not gonna last here long," she said, not looking up. Stephen leaned on the table. "Why's that? You look like someone who thinks this job's supposed to make sense." Stephen kept his voice calm. "So Rick makes you fake it all the time," she said bitterly. "We had a sewage backup last month. He told us to light candles and not mention it. Said if we lost a star on inspection, we'd lose hours. One guy quit over it. Rick told everyone he was stealing and fired him." Stephen's stomach turned. "Why stay?" he asked. Haley shrugged. "I got a kid. Pays the rent. I keep hoping someone higher up will notice, but no one ever comes here." Stephen looked around the cramped break room. The microwave was broken. The fridge stank. The clock was off by an hour. He realized no one had even asked his name all day. The next morning, he showed up early and found Rick in the kitchen with another worker, a guy named Darnell who looked barely 20. "You didn't scrub the trays last night," Rick said, tossing one onto the counter. "You want this place shut down?" Darnell looked exhausted. "I stayed till 10 scrubbing. The sink's clogged, I told you." Rick stepped closer. You want to keep your job or you want to whine? Steven stepped in quickly. Hey, I can help with dishes today if you want. Rick turned, annoyed. Stick to your job. And don't butt in. Darnell mouthed thanks as he walked past. Steven stayed silent, but inside he was boiling fake cleaning, intimidation, threats. He hadn't built this company, but he sure as hell owned it now, and it was time to take it back. By Wednesday, Steven had already memorized the rhythm of Store 14. The lunch rush hit hard at 11:30, dipped slightly after 1, then surged again around 4 when families began showing up early for dinner. There were no slow days, just varying degrees of chaos. That morning, he was assigned to drink station restocking syrup bags for the soda machine, extra tea jugs, and wiping down the counter between refills. The sweet tea nozzle was sticky. He asked if there was any degreaser. You're not here to deep clean, said a woman in her 50s with a stack of trays in her hands. Just make it look fine. If it's shiny, it's clean enough. She didn't introduce herself. No one did in this place unless pressed. Later, while restocking napkins near the buffet entrance, Steven noticed a family standing awkwardly near the sneeze guard. A young girl pointed toward the mac and cheese tray, which was more crust than pasta. Her mother approached one of the line workers, a wiry man with sunken eyes who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Excuse me," she said, "this tray's empty and it smells a little burnt." The man didn't even look up. "We're rotating, it'll be a minute." Then he walked away. Steven glanced over at the heat well. No backup trays, no one even moving toward the kitchen. The woman sighed and led her daughter back to their table. In the kitchen, Darnell was scraping baked-on cheese from a pan with a bent spatula. Steven leaned in. "Are you on buffet refills too?" Darnell kept scraping. "We all are, but we're short again. 2 people called off and Rick won't approve overtime, so we're just playing catch-up." Steven looked around. The fryer sizzled unattended. The prep table was cluttered with half-chopped vegetables. No one was really communicating, just grinding through the shift in isolated silos. After lunch, Steven was assigned to trash runs. He wheeled the bins through a side door toward the back alley. The smell hit hard, something between sour milk and rotting fruit. The dumpster was overflowing. Bags were stacked beside it, torn open by raccoons or maybe just time. A swarm of flies lifted when he moved closer. He went back inside and found Rick in the office, sitting behind a security monitor, drinking from a ceramic mug. "Hey," Steven said, keeping his tone level. "The dumpster's full." "We need a pickup." Rick didn't look up. "Scheduled for Friday. It's Wednesday?" "Yeah," and Steven hesitated. "You want me to double bag it or something?" Rick finally looked up. "You want to start making decisions now? Look, you're not management. You're not paid to think through logistics. Just get it done and don't block the fire exit or corporate'll have a field day." Steven wanted to respond but held back. He walked out, grabbed a box of gloves, and started double bagging torn trash under a sun that had no mercy. Broken glass cut through one of the bags. He grabbed a broom and pan to sweep it up. No one offered help. By the time he returned inside, sweat sticking his shirt to his back, a teenage girl was crying near the drink station. A customer, a man in a golf polo and expensive sunglasses, was yelling at her about his coffee being cold. "I told you it's from the machine," she said, trying to explain. "I don't care where it's from," the man snapped. "You work here, you fix it." Steven stepped in. "Sir, I can help you." The man turned. "You the manager?" "No, but I can get your refund or a fresh drink." The man scoffed. "Unbelievable. Coffee tastes like old socks and you people act like it's normal." Steven turned to the girl. "Go take 5. She hesitated, then nodded and walked toward the back. Rick appeared out of nowhere. "Problem here?" Steven explained, keeping it brief. Rick gave a wide, fake smile to the customer. "Sorry, sir, we'll comp your meal, come with me." As they walked off, Steven noticed Rick didn't say a word to the girl. Later, in the break room, she sat curled up in a corner, still wiping her face. "You okay?" Steven asked. She looked up. "He called me a moron. Said I probably didn't finish high school. I'm still in high school." Steven sat down across from her. "You told Rick." She shook her head. He doesn't care. He says if we can't handle customers, we shouldn't be out front, but I need this job. I'm saving for community college. Stephen clenched his jaw. What's your name, Delia? There was no excuse for what she'd just gone through. He would remember her name. That night, the line cook Miguel pulled Stephen aside. You seen the back freezer? No. Why? Miguel glanced around. Walk with me. They slipped behind the prep line and into the back hallway. The freezer door had duct tape across the top hinge. Miguel opened it carefully. The cold air hit fast but not strong. Inside, boxes were stacked unevenly and ice crusted the walls. A jug of ranch had burst and frozen into a shapeless blob on the floor. Stephen stepped in. The temperature read 27 degrees. This isn't right, Miguel said. Freezers should be below 0, I told Rick. He said not to log it. If corporate sees it, he says we're shut down. Stephen checked the vent. Barely any airflow. Anyone else know? No one wants to touch it. One guy got food poisoning last month, thought it was from here. Rick told him to shut up or lose shifts. Stephen stepped back. His stomach turned again, harder this time. He had seen enough. The next morning, Stephen walked in an hour before opening. No apron, no name tag, just slacks and a dress shirt. Haley was filling salt shakers. Hey, you're early, she said, then paused when she saw him. Wait. Stephen nodded slowly. My name's not Sean, she blinked. You're corporate, I'm the owner. The salt shaker in her hand trembled slightly. What? Rick came in through the front holding a clipboard. Hey, don't just stand there, Stephen turned. Rick froze. Do I? No, you've been reporting to my office for 3 years. I'm Stephen Pierce. Silence fell like a dropped plate. Rick's mouth opened then closed. Okay, this is unexpected. Stephen stepped closer. Not as unexpected as finding out you've been ignoring safety violations, bullying staff, lying about inspections, and letting your team get verbally abused by customers. Rick stammered. Now hold on. No, Stephen said, voice steady. You've had your chance. You're done here. I'll have your paperwork by noon. I suggest you don't make this harder than it has to be. Rick's eyes darted to Haley, then to the hallway. No one moved. You can't just, I can. And I am. Rick stood for a long moment, then stormed into the office. The door slammed. No one followed him. Stephen turned to the room. If anyone else has something to say about him, about anything, tell me. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Haley exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. Miguel quietly walked out of the kitchen and stood beside her. Stephen looked at both of them. We've got a lot to fix, starting today. At 8 the next morning, the dining room at Store 14 was quiet except for the faint rattle of chairs being reset and silverware being rolled. Stephen stood in the corner of the lobby, arms folded, watching as the crew slowly filtered in. He hadn't changed out of yesterday's clothes, hadn't wanted to. He needed them to see that this wasn't a gesture. He was still here because this wasn't over. Haley arrived first, her hair tied tighter than usual, a clipboard in hand. She gave him a small nod before moving behind the counter. Miguel followed, eyes alert, lips pressed in a thin line. Darnell came through the side door next, still wearing the same tattered sneakers Stephen had seen him in all week. Rick was gone. The office was locked, the desk cleared, the keys left in a plain envelope with his name scratched on the front in pen. No one asked where he had gone. By 9, Stephen called everyone to the dining room. They gathered near the salad bar, uncertain, arms crossed or hands stuffed in apron pockets. I'm not here to give a speech, Stephen said, voice even. And I'm not here to make promises we can't keep. But what I saw this week, it shouldn't have happened. And it won't happen again. No one said anything, they just waited. He continued. We're short-staffed. We're behind on maintenance, and some of you haven't had a real break in weeks. That ends now, but I need your help to fix this. Starting with honesty. Delia stepped to the front slowly. Her arms were folded, but her voice was calm. If you're serious about that, then you need to know the back oven hasn't worked right in months. We've been rotating trays by hand. Stephen nodded. Noted. Go on. A man in his 30s, lean with a sharp jawline and faded sleeves, stepped forward next. Dishwasher only runs on cold. We've been rinsing by hand and using sanitizer spray. It's not enough. What's your name, Marcus? Stephen made a mental note. We'll shut down that station until it's fixed. No exceptions. Miguel cleared his throat. We're out of half the backup freezer stock. We've been skipping prep because there's nowhere to store anything safely. That's going to change, Stephen said. I've already called in a third-party inspection of every system. They'll be here tomorrow. No one clapped, no one cheered. But for the first time, no one looked away. He pulled out a small notebook. Here's what's happening today. We're closing early 4 instead of 9. Everyone gets time to breathe and reset. I've called in a cleaning crew to deep scrub the entire kitchen and the front of house. They'll take over after close. No one stays late. Haley raised an eyebrow. We're not losing pay for that. No, everyone gets paid through shift end. And starting next week, every full-time employee gets a rotating 2-day break. You'll still get your hours. We're making the schedule work. Delia looked up sharply. How? We're hiring. I've already rerouted applications from nearby stores that filled ahead. You'll get support. But I'm not hiring just anyone. You'll help with training. No more dumping people on the floor with no prep. Darnell rubbed the back of his neck. That actually sounds fair. Stephen nodded once. If you've got doubts, I get it, but you'll see it, not in words. In action. He dismissed them to stations. As they moved, quieter than usual but more focused, Stephen stepped into the office. He powered on the ancient desktop. The system booted slowly, dusty fans whirring like they were running on fumes. He pulled up the employee files and cross-checked the log of missed maintenance reports. The backlog was worse than he thought. Some entries had been edited. Others deleted entirely. He clicked through until he reached the scheduling logs. Rick had been cutting prep staff down to 2 people on weekends. The place served over 400 covers a day. It should have had 6 minimum. Stephen printed the records and slid them into a folder marked audit. At noon, he walked the floor. The buffet had fewer trays than usual. Haley had scaled back to focus on what they could prep safely, but the quality was better. Fresh, hot, actually rotated. Customers still came in, and no one complained about having fewer options. They noticed the cleanliness, the energy shift. The difference in how they were greeted. Near the drink station, Marcus was wiping down the counter. A woman in a floral dress approached him with a question about allergens. He didn't flinch. He pulled out the new laminated sheet Haley had helped him make that morning and walked her through the ingredients. Stephen watched from a distance. This was what mattered. By 3, the atmosphere had shifted again, less tension, more momentum. Delia was restocking utensils with quiet focus. Miguel was manning both grill and prep but looked sharper, more in control. Darnell, while still moving slowly, wasn't dragging. Even his posture had changed. Stephen stepped behind the counter and helped refill the salad bar bins. Haley joined him a moment later. You really gonna be here tomorrow? She asked. Every day this week, then every 2 weeks after. She gave a slow nod, then eyed the dining room. Place feels different. Stephen didn't respond. He didn't have to. At 4, as the last customer left, the crew gathered again. The cleaning team had arrived, 3 people in matching uniforms, hauling in industrial equipment and supplies. Stephen addressed the staff one final time. You're free to go. If you need a ride, we'll cover it. Miguel, you said your car's still in the shop. He nodded. There's a rideshare voucher in the office for you. Use it. Miguel blinked. Seriously? Use it. No questions. He turned to Marcus. You said you've done maintenance work before. Yeah, side gigs. Why? We need someone to oversee repairs next week. You'd report directly to me. Temporary pay raise. Interested? Marcus nodded slowly. Yeah, I do that. Good, we'll talk details tomorrow. Delia lingered behind as the others left. She looked up at him with something between caution and hope. You're not gonna disappear, are you? Stephen held her gaze. No. I disappeared once. I won't again. She nodded. That was enough. As the staff filed out, Stephen stayed behind. He helped the cleaning crew clear out the back freezer, logged the broken oven's serial number, and called in the repair. By the time he left, it was nearly 9. The dining room was spotless. The air, for the first time all week, didn't reek of old fryer oil. The tile shone under the overhead lights. Every surface had been wiped down, every wall scrubbed. He stepped outside and locked the door behind him. The night air was cool, quiet. For the first time in days, he didn't feel like he was carrying the place on his back. He felt like he was rebuilding it with people who gave a damn. Tomorrow would be harder, but it would be better. Because now the truth was out, and the real work had begun. By the following Thursday, the changes were visible but still raw. The dining room was cleaner, the kitchen better organized, and the staff slightly more responsive, but the weight of months under poor leadership didn't lift itself in a week. Stephen knew that. Real change wasn't a coat of paint, it was pressure, consistency, and time. He walked through the prep line slowly, clipboard in hand, jotting notes beside Miguel as he demonstrated a new labeling system they'd started testing for the back cooler. Not fancy, just colored stickers and clearer dates, but it worked. Miguel moved with quiet precision, his sleeves rolled up, forearms dusted with flour. Some of the new hires coming in Saturday, Stephen said. I want them shadowing you and Haley. You okay with that? Miguel didn't stop slicing. Long as they listen, yeah. I'm not babysitting. You won't have to, Stephen said. We're not keeping people who don't pull weight. Down the hallway, Haley was reviewing inventory with a woman from corporate logistics, someone Stephen had brought in from another district. Every item was being cross-checked against physical stock. Rick's reports had been off by hundreds of dollars, and Haley was the only one who could explain half the discrepancies. Stephen stepped into the office and closed the door. The air in there still carried a faint stale odor, a mix of old paper and cheap cologne. He didn't sit. He clicked on the monitor and opened the live feedback dashboard, newly installed, displaying real-time customer surveys and internal shift logs. A new policy. Every employee could log hours, breaks, and safety issues directly. No gatekeeping. 4 logs had already come in that morning. One flagged a loose tile in the walk-in cooler. Another mentioned a slow leak under the dish station. Both had already been marked in progress. A knock pulled his attention. Delia leaned in, holding a clipboard. Got a second? Come in. She stepped inside, eyes scanning the room. Did you know the guy from temp services called me yesterday? Stephen raised an eyebrow. What'd he say? He said Rick submitted a non-rehire status on me before he left. Said I had attitude issues and caused customer complaints. Stephen's jaw tightened. You're not going anywhere, I figured. But I wanted to hear it from you. You've stood up to more than most people twice your age, he said. That's not attitude, that's grit. She nodded once, then handed him the clipboard. Also, we're out of small lids again. That's the 3rd time this week. Stephen scanned the supply log. That's a vendor issue. I'll call it in myself. As she turned to leave, she hesitated. Hey, you ever think about putting someone from here in charge? Like long-term? He looked up. You volunteering? Her lips twitched briefly. Not yet, just wondering. I'm watching. Not just for who works hard, but who steps up. When she left, Stephen picked up the phone. 20 minutes later, he was on a 3-way call with the temp agency and the internal HR team. If any flag from Rick's tenure is still active, he said, remove it. Retroactively. And I want a written summary of every employee he submitted for disciplinary action in the last 12 months. Cross-reference that with turnover. The HR rep hesitated. That's going to be a long list. Then get started, I'll wait. By lunch, Stephen was back on the floor. The buffet was steady. Marcus was training one of the new hires, a stocky man in his late 20s with a quiet demeanor and a steady rhythm. Haley gave Stephen a nod from the salad bar. She'd adjusted the layout to reduce backups near the plates. It worked. Stephen grabbed a tray and sat near the window, observing. Not as a boss, but as someone trying to see what most people missed. A woman in a red cardigan waved him over. Excuse me, you're the owner, right? Stephen stood. I am, she smiled. I've been coming here for years. It feels different now, calmer. Like people actually care. That's the goal. You should talk to the tall guy at the pasta station. He helped my son find a clean spoon and didn't act like it was a chore. Stephen glanced toward the line. That was Darnell. His posture wasn't perfect, but he was present, attentive. He returned to the kitchen and found Darnell rinsing out a colander. Got a compliment out front, Stephen said. Darnell looked up. Yeah, kid dropped a spoon. You got him a new one. Simple, but it mattered. Darnell shrugged. Wasn't a big deal. It is when people aren't used to being treated like they matter. Darnell paused, then nodded once. Appreciate you saying that. Stephen didn't linger. He knew when to let a moment stand. Around 2, the final issue of the day surfaced. A woman named Carla, mid-30s, new, on her second shift, was pulled aside by Miguel. She keeps vanishing during rush, he said, voice low. 10 minutes here, 15 there. Says she's just breathing, but she's leaving the line short. Stephen waited until she returned from the back hallway, then approached her near the dry storage. You okay? He asked. She crossed her arms. I just needed air. It was loud. I wasn't doing anything wrong. You left your station while customers were waiting. That's not sustainable. I've got anxiety, she said sharply. I told the manager yesterday. Stephen nodded. We accommodate medical needs, but we don't abandon coworkers. You're part of a team. I don't need a lecture, she snapped. I've worked in worse kitchens, and I've never had to explain myself this much. That's fine, he said calmly, but if you can't meet the pace here, we have to be honest about that. She rolled her eyes. So what? You're firing me. I'm letting you go, Stephen said. This isn't the right fit. She muttered something under her breath, tossed her apron on the prep table, and left through the back door without another word. Miguel watched from the corner. That going to be a problem? No, Stephen said. The problem just walked out. By the end of the week, the repairs to the freezer were complete. The oven had been replaced. A new dishwasher was installed. Stephen brought in a full-time safety consultant to train every shift lead on basic compliance, not as a punishment, but as prevention. The final step came quietly. On Friday afternoon, Stephen called Haley into the office. I'm naming a new general manager, he said. She blinked. You're trusting someone in-house. I'm trusting you. Her mouth parted slightly, but no words came out at first. You've kept this place afloat under pressure no one should have faced. You know the team, you know what needs fixing, and you're not afraid to speak up. She sat down slowly. That's a lot to take in. You won't be alone. You'll get support, resources, and a direct line to me, but I need someone I can trust on the ground. You've earned that. She looked down at her hands, then back at him. If I say yes, I want to change how we train. No more throwing people on the floor cold, and I want weekly check-ins with the team. 15 minutes, everyone gets a voice. Done. And I want Delia on shift lead track. Stephen smiled just slightly. She's already on the list. Haley stood. Then I'm in. That weekend, the changes were posted. A memo went up in the break room, not from corporate, but from Haley. It listed revised responsibilities, new training slots, and a schedule for anonymous feedback drop-ins. It wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. Stephen stopped by once that Sunday, unannounced. He walked in during peak lunch, grabbed a tray, and watched from a booth. The sneeze guards were clean, the floor was dry. The pasta trays were full. He caught eyes with Miguel across the kitchen window. Miguel gave a short nod. That was enough. As Stephen stepped back outside into the sun, he didn't feel like someone who'd fixed everything. He felt like someone who'd finally stopped looking away. And that was the only place real leadership could ever start.